to be here when we're doing the master plan process, because they would basically be groomed in the process of implementing it. Because I think that's the problem, is we had this idea, but the city didn't follow up. I think someone needs to really be in this process, and I think they also need someone who needs to be dedicated to being here for the long term. I mean, not part-time. I mean, literally, I mean, the city manager is the CEO of the city, and that's its own skill set. And I think that coming in after the fact, that's an opportunity that's a lost opportunity for people to hear what citizens say. If this person's here and they're able to be through the whole process of threats and everything, they're going to know what the citizens want, what they say. They're going to be able to participate in this process.
But 90% of the citizens' master plan was implemented, and the reason why in my opinion, why it really wasn't as maybe further implemented, it never was adopted. It wasn't led by the city, it was led by the community. It didn't get adopted, but 90% of that got implemented. 2 staff members and 2 Team Punta Gorda volunteers met. They met here, and I can give you the names of the people. And they met and they went through it item by item, page by page, and determined how much got implemented. And many of the things, they either got implemented, or they were ongoing things, or they were determined to be some things that were conceptual, visionary, but not necessarily something that was actionable. So, or some of the things were deemed not appropriate when it happened to mention something about putting a commercial property someplace in the middle of somewhere that, people were like, what? But, so it really, I don't think that had an impact. And so it would,
Well, it's a totally different situation now.
It's a different situation now, because we are going to be leading that process, which is what was Delray Beach's experience, and so and I think that's a really good thing.
That's the point, is that because the city's leading it this time, the city leader would need to be involved. But before, it was an optional situation. I'm saying it's totally different in that scenario. What we're doing now is the city is leading this. Basically, this revisioning, this renewal, this process, and I think that if we're going to spend this money for a master plan and not actually have the person who's going to be driving the car for the next 10 years in place, I think it's irresponsible for us to do that.
I disagree.
Gary?
I think, this is from my perception, and this is part of Jaha's point, and this is also part of your point. I think the problem with the original master plan that was so graciously given to us by the citizenry and Team Punta Gorda, the problem that, and I've stated this before, is yes, we did implement 90% of it, but we didn't evolve it.
And we didn't reassess and we didn't update.
Yeah. And the point is that these types of plans should be living organisms, organs, if you will, that are constantly evolved, and they're looked at every year, rather than, okay, we got the projects done, now let's go on to the next project. That's not, it should be always looking down the future, because what can happen is you have that master plan, and then there's a hiccup, or there's a different road to take, the high road or the low road or the in-between road or what have you. And the master plan needs to be a living organism, that it can be flexible enough to adjust according to changing situations. So I think that, and with great respect, I think both of you have a good point, and I think you're both missing the one point, is they both need to be melded a little bit. Yeah. Because the 2005 plan was a wonderful document, but it wasn't allowed to live. It wasn't allowed to breathe in 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
With this, and maybe it's because the city never really formally accepted it, so it never really formally had a dog in the hunt.
True.
Okay.
Well, things weren't happening.
And so in this case is why maybe we should be taking the initiative as the city directly, as the council, so that we do have that ownership, and that we and then hopefully the councils that follow after us through the years take that ownership and keep it as an evolving document and an evolving plan and roadmap for us to go.
I think too, if we are gonna seriously consider this, October may be a little too late, because we're already into fiscal year 2019 at that point.
Yes, and we can always do amendments, like we've done
Right.
mid-year adjustments before.
Okay.
So anytime.
I think if it does come and it is serious, then we should implement it into 2019. Lynn?
We also have the issue of we won't have any money to fund it, but just as importantly, we have a new communications manager coming on board who could easily fit into that role if necessary and be groomed to be that kind of a person for the city. If they're going to be doing the marketing and all of that sort of stuff for the city, they could easily be the person to implement the Citizens Master Plan.
Well, she's got a pretty thorough job description already that we already agreed on. I don't see us tweaking that right now because we just had somebody agree to that.
I think it's worthy of a discussion.
Yeah, I think we should have a discussion item soon, like August meeting, to discuss this, because, again, the city manager, that's a big job. It's its own skill set. I mean, and I think that that's something we kind of can't half do, and I just don't think we should get into this late, and I think we have a perfect opportunity. I think we're a rare city that's an opportunity where we're gonna have this much discussion, this much just relationship between the city and the citizenry, that why would we not want to have someone in place who's going to be able to be involved with kind of this rebirth? I think it's a missed opportunity if we don't do that. I think we would just be silly if we did not
How are we
have
going to
that.
fund it?
The same way we're going to fund the master plan, that same place.
And I agree with you. If we're not batting an eye at 500,000 plus for the plan, then, you know, the implementation of it, we've realized is of utmost importance. So you're gonna bring it to,
Yes.
okay.
August 22nd.
Just one more comment. If it's a good plan, which I expect it will be, it will have a return on investment. It will either produce or save us more money than the plan cost overall. But in the short term, it does have to be funded up front.
Any other comments?
No.
Okay, citizens' comments, any topic. Please take the podium to my right. You have 3 minutes. State your name for the record,
Hi,
please.
Kelly Liscombe. It's my first time commenting, but I'm assuming I'm allowed to comment on anything that was talked
Anything,
about.
yes.
Okay. I am the business manager for Marina Park and Marina Park Management, and also the vice president of Smugglers Enterprises, which has Lashley Crab House, the Captain's Table, and Harpoon Harry's at Fisherman's Village. We wanted to thank the city for their foresight in adding the additional 41 spots to, sorry, I'm very pregnant, out of breath. To alleviate the parking for the 11 businesses that are there that make up an ice cream store, a restaurant, real estate, title company, and retail stores, as well as the marina and events that happen in the park. I would also like to thank city staff for the communication. They've been in touch with us as it relates to our deliveries, how those could be impacted, and also how the flow of traffic would be impacted as the construction progresses. So thank you all for that. I would like to comment on the meeting times. I agree with Council Member Matthews and Vice Mayor Wayne that the business advisory, the business workshop, excuse me, I think that was heavily attended because the agenda was very broad and we didn't know what to expect. I know as myself, it's difficult for me to attend evening meetings. I've got 3 children and 1 on the way. I think TJ Thornberry said it best when he got up and made his comments and then quickly had to leave to get home to his infant daughter. So just for whatever that's worth, I think that the morning meetings are more conducive to business owners to be able to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Citizens' comments, any topic.
Charlie Council, like to revisit the tipping issue that you guys discussed. My concern is that we're mandating inefficiencies. Okay, think about, from an industrial engineering standpoint, what goes on with someone with the containers. They have to come here, pick it up, run it over to the truck. There's a cycle where the mechanism allows it to go in, then they have to bring that back. So they're making 2 trips. If they're like me, we have 1 or maybe 2 small bags in that container. It's unnecessary to bring that over and dump those. It's just as easy to pick those up and bring them in. If I think the original concept of having the tippers was to try to alleviate some of the physical strains and injuries and so forth. Here we've talked about utilizing a lesser number of employees to do X amount of work. And if we're going to build inefficiencies into that process they go through, I think it really defeats some of it. So, from a practical, industrial engineering standpoint, an IE would just shudder at having that sort of activity. So it has to be a middle ground between something that strictly mandates that each and every container has to be wheeled to that truck and back again, when it's very practical, depending upon what's in there, to simply be picked up in one trip and go with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Citizens' comments, any topic, please make your way to the podium if you would like to speak.
Wendy Mueller, Historic District. As 9 o'clock meetings, I was a business owner for 40 years. If I wanted to be at a meeting, I would be there. Even if you're an individual that owns a business and it's open 7 days a week, if you have to be somewhere, you go there. If you need to see your accountant, your lawyer, whatever, you get that time and you make it. If it's that important to you, you'll be there. This evening stuff in Punta Gorda after 4 o'clock, well, I don't think that's a good idea. Just personal. The other thing, an assistant. We don't have the monies in reserves. We keep stealing money for the next year, putting it back, playing these games. That's not a balanced budget. That's an accountant's name for a balanced budget. And then we're going to hire somebody else when we have staff here that knows each other's jobs already. They do cross each other. They do fill for each other. And they do a great job at it. And they should be the ones that are apprenticing for taking over the city manager's job, or at least becoming one of those assistants in the future. Now, don't budget that money. It's not a good idea.
Hi, Kathy Getz, Historic District. I have to tell you that I respectfully disagree with Wendy's last comments. I think the city manager's position is unique, needs to be a person educated in that type of thing, has to know the law, and you really need to think about how long it will take to fill that position and to bring someone up to speed. Number two, I had the pleasure of traveling in the last month, and was in a town where the garbage containers were lined up absolutely perfectly, one right by the street. And you know what? They were lined up that way because if the tipper comes by and it's not in the right place, your garbage sits. So it's citizen education, I think, to get that done. And I'm sure that the number one reason for doing it is the workman's comp issues. And that's important. So there you go.
Thank you. Anybody else? Citizens' comments, any topic? Seeing nobody rising, we are adjourned.
Karen, do you have stuff for us to sign?